I have been testing Skirk a ton on the creator experience server, and I didn't want to miss a thing. So I went through over 500 of your most burning questions to answer everything about Skirk, including her place in the meta, an exact ranking of her teammates, testing her constellations versus her weapon, as well as her best combos. Let's talk about it all. Welcome to Jello Impact, where we build and test every single character to help you decide who you want to wish for and build. We are giving away 4 copies of a 5-star of your choice. You can enter the YouTube giveaway by filling out the form below. Only fill it out once. If you fill it out more than once, you will be disqualified. We're giving away 2 on Twitch, so make sure to follow me down there, and 1 in the Discord, so join the Discord as well. Thank you again so much for 100,000 subscribers. Unbelievable. So first, her teammates ranking. After playing all of our teammates quite a bit, this is what I think it is. Rather than talking about each slot independently, like, oh, if you have this character, then use this character and this character, it's basically just a list of all of the characters that you can throw together. Skirk is the kind of character that doesn't need specific supports, except for Escoffier. She just needs characters that do things that are Hydro or Cryo. If that thing is buffing, excellent. If that thing is damage, fine. And after testing, after looking at the updated calcs, this is where we stand. Escoffier is it's not mandatory to do something like 36-star the Abyss. Skirk will still do fine, especially with characters in the upper echelons of this tier list, but to reach anywhere near her max potential, which is extremely high, higher than even I thought it was pre-release, she will definitely need Escoffier. And if you don't have her, it's not that you can't pick up Skirk and do well enough, it's that you should really prioritize getting Escoffier in the future and hope that she reruns soon. Furina is definitely the next best support, but I would say the gap isn't as big between her and other options as I thought. It is definitely her best option, but if you don't have Furina or need to use Furina with another teammate, it is really not the end of the world at all. I think Mona, Shenhe, and Mualani are about tied for the next best support. Shenhe excels when high resistances on the enemy happen. She's also just pretty good in general. Mualani is sometimes the best, but it's kind of weird because you're not really using any of her kit at all. You're just using her for the Cinder City artifact set and the Thrilling Tales, which just goes to show how mediocre Skirk's final slot options are for her team. And Mona has a lot of front-loaded damage, so she can perform on par with the other two. If you have her Constellation 4, she actually outperforms the other two. I think Yelan and Sitlali have potential to be up in this tier, which is why that I have both put them at S. However, in my particular testing, they did perform a little bit worse, but I do think that their overall potential is quite close to these 3. So basically any of these 5 are perfectly great. And then Dahlia, I have an exclamation mark. I have him below the other 5, but with an exclamation mark, because I do think with the right optimized combos and at C6 and enabling Calamity of Ishu, Dahlia could possibly be up there with the better supports, but also at C0, not enabling Calamity of Ishu, I don't know how valuable this stuff is. Candice and Sing Cho, they're pretty solid, but like nothing crazy. I did like them though, they're totally viable. And then these ones I would consider a bit more cope. They all have things that they can do that are solid, but you'll feel the downgrade difference. So that is your Skirk teammate tier list. And, you know, as long as you have a Escoffier, you're getting Dahlia from the banner, and you can pick a free Mona from the anniversary in 6.0. So as long as you have a Escoffier, you will at least have a solid free-to-play team for Skirk. That is your free-to-play team. It's Escoffier, Mona, Dahlia, okay? To re-emphasize, if you don't have Shenhe, if you don't have Furina, it's fine. As long as you have a Escoffier, it's fine. If you don't have a Escoffier, honestly, I hope you're okay doing, you know, just okay damage. Can Childe work? I know it's so close, right? Childe, Master, and Student, it would be so nice to use them together. They just don't have any synergy at all. DPS Childe is such a DPS loss. You could use, hey, look. You could use burst support Childe in the place of this last slot and just use his burst. The problem is his passive doesn't even boost Skirk because it boosts normal attack level, which hers is technically normal attack damage, but it uses her skill talent level, so they don't have synergy there. And then Skirk boosts Childe's skill level, which is good. That's what he uses for damage, but his damage is just not so great. So if you do want to make it work though, you're going to switch out your last slot for burst nuke Childe, and you'll just get a bit of Escoffier boosted hydro damage, and that is all. So it's not that great, but you know, you can make it work if you want to. That's okay. Is Skirk worth it if you don't have Escoffier? I feel like no matter how you define worth it, the answer is no, unless you really like Skirk. Can she still 36 star? Yes. Is it worth getting? No. What would be a decent replacement? We'll have to wait until there is any other cryo and hydro supports. The reality is it's not just that she is reliant on Escoffier, like of course she is, but we just don't have that good of cryo and hydro supports. But I will say, you know, the Shenhe, if you have Shenhe Mona Yelan or, you know, Shenhe Citlali Mulani or whatever it is, those feel pretty good. Those feel pretty good, even without Escoffier. How good is C4 Ayaka as a burst support for Skirk? Haven't seen anyone mention it at all. Bit of a niche, but 30% defense shred. So Ayaka C4, opponents damaged will have their defense decreased by 30% for 6 seconds. So this would replace the 4th slot here, and you'd use Ayaka last in the rotation. You'd get some damage from Ayaka and reduce shred by 30% for 6 seconds. So it'd be a very front-loaded buff, but 30% defense shred is really, really good. I don't know if that would be better than all of these slots. I would not be surprised at all if it was better. Between the damage that Ayaka is putting out and the defense shred, especially for Skirk's nuke burst playstyle, this could be crazy. You know what? Let's test it right now. This sounds really fun. Boom, 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 boom. Okay, remember this is the content creator server. This is not my own account. I do not own a C4 Ayaka. But on the content experience server, we have access. So let's test it out. C4 Ayaka, use our Escoffier, used our Ayaka, normal, and we do the burst. And let's see. Ooh. Ooh-wee. Oh yeah, that is where it's at. To be fair, just remember we are at C1 R1 with our Skirk. So let me just quickly compare that to how it did before. Yeah, it's definitely awesome. Now, again, granted, it is C1 R1, so that defense shred is like extra pronounced because the investment on her is so high. But if you have C4 Ayaka, that should be the best 4th slot. It'd be cool if someone did calc so we could see for sure. But I'm definitely not saying go get it. That's not what I'm saying at all. I'm assuming you have it though, and that's why you're asking. How much do you think Skirk would benefit from crowd control? You pointed to Skirk guide. The enemies tend to be a little too spread out to hit. So what about using Venti? Adding a different element is a massive hit to her damage and uptime, and is never worth it. Even if your Venti is C6 R5, it is just not worth at all. If she had maybe like a C1 or C2 that allowed you to run a non-cryo or hydro character, then sure, but they really are selling her kit as cryo hydro only. What are some cope Skirk teams that are not just cryo hydro? Can you realistically make any others work? I think the only other one is Skirkle Bloom. I tested some Skirkle Bloom in the Abyss, and it performed fairly similarly to her bad 4-star teams. So like if you're using bad 4-stars, like, you know, the ones down here, and you don't have like the 5 stars, then Skirkle Bloom is okay. Melt's not really good synergy. I mean, you could use her as a cryo applicator for Moika, I guess. There you go. You really want to use the cryo hydro. If you don't want the cryo hydro, just don't bother getting Skirk. That's what she's for. How good will be the Neuvillette, Skirk, Escoffier, and Farina team? Will this be the best team for Neuvillette or Skirk? How much better would it be for Neuvillette's current team? So it is technically Neuvillette's best team, but it really does hamper your Skirk damage. I would say that this is only worth doing in AoE heavy content that Neuvillette really excels, because otherwise Skirk is you're just losing a lot of damage by on-fielding Neuvillette instead of Skirk. So it is technically Neuvillette's best team slightly, especially because of Skirk's front-loaded damage, and does beat out Citlali and does allow you to use Citlali in the other place. But if you were to replace Neuvillette with Mona, and use Skirk as the on-fielder, then the damage increases a lot. So it's definitely something you can do though. And the same thing with Ayaka and Risley. It's probably going to be all of those characters' best teams, but it's not going to be Skirk's best team. Her burst playstyle is just very good. Is Mika a viable healer when using Farina? He just doesn't do enough. So unfortunately, not really. Like, it's viable, but because you're replacing Escoffier, it makes it not viable. If you're replacing one of these characters, you don't lose nearly as much, and you're still using Escoffier. It's not the healing that Escoffier is really providing like she is. It's the shred and the damage. Best team for Skirk with no Farina. I have Yelan, Shenhe, Escoffier, Mulani, C4 Mona. I would go Escoffier, Shenhe, and Mulani. Oh, but C4 Mona could be good too. All of them will be good. They will be really, really good. But I would start with Shenhe, Escoffier, Mualani, and also give C4 Mona a try. C4 Mona is really good, but you're going to be very in danger of overcapping on crit rate. Mist Splitter or Jade Cutter. So Mist Splitter. So if you can use Jade Cutter with the Mualani one, that will be your best. Otherwise, Mist Splitter maybe with C4 Mona, if you can utilize the crit rate, that might beat Mualani. Try it and see. They're going to be good, and see what's best for your account. Elaborate more on the build of sub DPS nuke in a freeze team, especially with the comparison between Shenhe versus sub DPS nuke versus melt team for a Risley main, which has the fastest clearing times. How to build such a sub DPS nuke Skirk. Nuke Skirk is just, there's no real special way to play it. You just hold her skill and absorb the rifts and then use your burst, and it does a ton of damage. And so you just want to do that before going on to your Risley, and you just get, you know, a bunch of damage. And the build is just a normal Skirk build. You can check out one of my many videos where I've talked about her build, and probably I'll talk about it later here. Exact percent difference if Farina isn't your team, but Escoffier is. The exact percent difference is that it's a decent amount, but not too much. It really depends on everything, on the assumptions you make in the calcs. I think it's like 10%, 15%, but actually Mualani was pretty high. I think it was 115 for Mualani. No, it was 110 for Mualani versus 115, so like 7% different. I don't know. It really depends on what teammates you're going to. Trust me, she will still be one of the best, if not the second best DPS in the game, basically as long as you have Escoffier and you have some other 5-star supports. Which two characters can I add as a free-to-play? With Skirk, Escoffier, Dahlia, and Xingqiu be a good combo? Yeah, I would just swap out Xingqiu for Mona, and if you don't have Mona, pick her up from the selector. But that'll definitely work in the meantime. I don't see Skirk getting better in the near future, and from a meta perspective, she seems to be at her best right now. Totally disagree. Her last slot is, like, think about Mualani. She doesn't have a real kit in this team. She's not using any of her kit. All she is a scroll and Thrilling Tales bot. If we get any character, 4-star or 5-star, that provides an actual kit that can benefit Skirk, then it'll do it. C4 Mona, a standard banner character from a billion years ago, just with a 15% crit rate buff, Thrilling Tales, and her super short Omen buff, that is her best 4th slot overall. I can sure, Hoyo could never release another 4th slot. But I feel, and then Shenhe, you know, a character who came out a billion years ago who's already been power crept and outdated, etc., who can't even utilize her full kit with Skirk because she can only use one skill per rotation. These are really, really cope 4th options, and Skirk could easily get a 4th option that would make her possibly the best DPS in the game if it was like an actual good character, like on the level of any Natlan character that we've had, any Natlan 5-star, save for Mizuki. Skirk could easily become the best DPS in the game. She's close enough that that's the case. Could they power creep her? If they did, they would also be power creeping Moika. She's really close to that. She's at that highest level of damage right now. So for her to be power crept would be that would be the best character in the game, power creeping her, and that's totally possible. But I don't agree with that statement. Although I do love Skirk and I definitely want her to succeed. So you can say I have that bias, but I think that the arguments that I'm putting out are valid regardless of that bias. Ideal 4th slot in Farina Iced Coffee team if you don't have access to 5-stars such as Yelan, Shenhe, or Citlali. Mona, and then Dahlia. Please tell me if Skirk will clear the abyss if I don't have Escoffier. She will. You'll just really want to make sure you get Escoffier in the future. I have Farina, no other cryo supports. I have Citlali. Yeah, so do like Citlali, Mona. You probably don't have Farina C1, or and yeah, it doesn't really even matter. I don't know. This is not an account that I'd recommend Skirk for meta on, right? But if you like Skirk and you're wondering if you can at least use her to clear the abyss, you can. But it won't be like super strong. What team do you recommend running if I don't have Escoffier, Shenhe, Yelan, Citlali, but I have everything else and Farina C1? I have everything else. So, okay. So Farina C1. What do you mean you have everything else? You don't have the only supports that were... So you have Mualani then. So like Farina, Mualani, Charlotte. It's going to be hard to get Mualani's scroll. Well, maybe not. You could put Charlotte on the energy weapon, Favonius, and then put Mualani on Thrilling Tales, and then you'd open with Farina, then you'd use Charlotte, skill and burst, then do Mona, and then pass Thrilling Tales to Skirk. That's what I would do. That should be pretty solid. How much better is the Neuvillette plus Escoffier team, or the Neuvillette plus Skirk team than Neuvillette? It's like only a little bit better than Citlali, but it allows you to play Citlali on the other side with Moika. Full attack speed team good with her? It's not good. It's fun, but it's not good. Attack speed isn't that crazy in Genshin. My Farina is C2, Escoffier is C1, Citlali is C1. Will this still make C0 Skirk as a good team with everyone at C0 R1? I'm asking you the difference between C0 R1, C0 R0 is kind of big, so please help me. C0 R0 will be an amazing team, and C0 R1 will be even better. You will crush everything, especially C2 Farina, C1 Escoffier. Geez, you're going to crush, you're going to obliterate everything with C0 R0, and C0 R1 will make a pretty big difference. But, like, you're going to destroy everything regardless. Is Skirkle Bloom more than just a meme? No, it is just a meme, but it's an okay option if you don't have, like, anything good, I guess. No weapon, no Shenhe, what to do? No weapon, no Shenhe, no problem. As long as you have Escoffier, no problem. All right, moving on from teammate question to playstyle question. Is her interruption resistance enough to play without a shield now that it's been nerfed to Xingqiu's level? So the thing about Xingqiu's level is on a sword characters have decent poise at a baseline, which is their ability to not get knocked around. And so Xingqiu plus a sword character is like pretty solid. So as you can see right here, I enter my skill state. The first hit, I believe, is in the animation. No, actually, but you can see all of those. You can see how many hits it took me to get knocked out of it. 1, 2, 3, 4. It was 4 hits. Like on the 4th hit, I got knocked out of it. So most hits are not going to be knocking you around. I never got interrupted while I played any content. I don't think that this is a big deal at all. I wouldn't bother with his shield anytime because she can also dash. So if there's a really powerful attack, big slamming attack by a big boss, you really don't lose anything from dashing. So face tank most hits, and then when there's a really big hit, then you can dash. So I think that's great design. Personally, how fun is she in your opinion out of 10? For me, she's a 10. She's the most fun character to play. I love the attack speed she has, the lack of hit lag on her hits, and it just feels like slicing through space and time, slicing through butter. It's so good. Some free-to-play teams are less free-to-play but not premium teams. I think Escoffier, maybe Dahlia Mona, that's free-to-play. Everyone will have that because you can get Mona from the selector. So yeah, Escoffier, Dahlia Mona would be my free-to-play go-to. Is she free-to-play friendly? Especially if I don't have Escoffier. As long as if you don't have Escoffier, then no, she's not friendly. She's friendly as long as you have Escoffier, regardless of whether you're free to play or not. What's her exact rotation? It feels kind of complicated to me and what to do when playing her burst style and slash style. So I haven't been testing the hybrid thing where you use both, and she still feels ridiculously broken because where I've been testing, I don't have access to like starting with this serpent subtlety stacks. So I haven't been doing like the rotations where you first do burst, then you do her skill rotation. It just hasn't even been relevant. Plus she one rotates anything, so it's kind of pointless to use that style. It's more for the Calyx right now and maybe for the new endgame. On screen right now is the basic combo that I've been able to get very consistently. There are apparently tons of combos out there that are way better than this one, but we'll have to wait for release and other people to do them because this is just not my strong suit. So this is one that you can practice in the meantime. Build. Attack versus Cryo Goblin average situations. I think unless you have like Farina C1 or C2, then Cryo Goblet is always slightly better. But if you have a really good attack goblet, then it could definitely be better. They're pretty close, especially with her signature set. Why don't people usually compare the non-signature Cryo set when talking about Skirk? Because the hardest content in Genshin is unfreezable. So you can't get that extra 20% crit rate from Blizzard Strayer, and that makes it not the best set. If you already have a set built, then you can definitely use it. But it's still going to be worse than Marie-José, which most people should have. Can I use Splendor of Tranquil Waters along her with Marie-José? That's the Farina weapon. Can I give her an attack circlet? Splendor of Tranquil Waters is going to be worse than Finale of the Deep. So you could use it, but it's going to be worse than the free-to-play Fontaine Craftable. If you want a full weapon ranking, it is in, I think, both of my other Skirk videos. With Farina, isn't Marie-José better than her signature set? It is ever so slightly better. Very close. But the burst damage is noticeably worse. So sometimes, especially if her burst playstyle becomes popular, like for finishing off enemies or certain waves or clearing waves or whatever it is, then her signature set could be better. So yeah. Is Tenacity the best set for Farina with her? Yes, it is. How much worse is Glad compared to Marie-José? It's a noticeable amount worse, plus it also doesn't buff the burst playstyle, so it's just kind of worse in general. You got a bunch of pretty good Glad pieces. I mean, you can use it, and then if you want an upgrade, then farm either Marie-José or her signature set. Layla plus Calamity Vishu. I mean, it is good. Like Layla plus, if you're enabling Calamity Vishu, then probably Layla goes here. But Dahlia kind of does it better. Layla's C4 buff just isn't consistent enough to really do a good job. So you have Escoffier, C1 Farina, C5 Mona. You definitely don't want to use Layla. It's super not worth it. Just use Escoffier, Farina, Mona, and you're good to go. That's best. Is Absolution better than Finale of the Deep? No, it's 2% worse. If you have lots of attack percent substats and not a lot of crit damage, it could be better. But yeah, you would, but then again, you would need R5 of Finale to be better than Absolution, so just go, if your Absolution's already built, just go for that. That's what I tested as my free-to-play option on the server. How much does C1 Shenhe help Skirk, Escoffier, Farina teams? It just helps, it helps like Escoffier and Shenhe with their ER. Damage, it doesn't really do anything. The tap and hold doesn't really matter that you can do both, since Skirk's only going to do one or the other. Meta questions. Where is she in the meta with Escoffier and without? So in my tier list, I have her in tier 0 below Moika. Noticeably below Moika, definitely below Moika on the meta list, but definitely above the other characters. She is our second tier 0 DPS. How much better is, and without Escoffier, she's like a bit below Ayaka and Risley with Escoffier. So like a noticeable amount below. Definitely never worth it for meta without Escoffier. How much better is she than Novelette? A good amount. I would say she's very, very noticeably above Novelette, like a hugely noticeable amount in single target. She's probably still better in AoE because she just does so much damage, but I could see certain AoE content where Novelette's range is really good. So like I tested both Novelette and Skirk versus these guys in Enconomia, or not Enconomia, the new, like that new place. I got like 54, I got a 54 with Skirk, and then I got something like 63 with Novelette or something like that. So definitely Novelette's better in AoE, and especially like true big AoE, but we don't have any like really hard AoE content, and I don't know if we ever will. If we ever did, then Novelette could be really good. Like he could be a tier 0 DPS again if AoE really mattered, but right now it's all about bosses, it's all about single target or maybe 2 target, which Skirk just kind of dumpsters Novelette at. It's like 20% better, something like that. Pretty crazy. Caesar R1 Ayaka, how much of an upgrade between Ayaka and Skirky? Shenhe, Farina, Escoffier. It's a pretty big upgrade. It'll feel like I did a comparison. You can check out in my first video. It's not quite as big as the upgrade from not having Escoffier with Ayaka to when you do have Escoffier with Ayaka, but it feels somewhat similar to that. Like it's a big jump. It does not feel like a small upgrade. Where do you see Skirk in a year or so? Totally power crept or way better? It's kind of like the earlier thing I said, right? If we get a good 4th slot, she could be the best DPS in the game. But it depends. But will we get it? They may never make it. In which case, she could just end up being, you know, a really good DPS for a while. I could see either. I don't see her getting totally power crept. That would be, if she got totally power crept, then Moika would also be totally power crept, or at least, maybe not totally, but at least mostly power corrupt, so yeah. Without Escoffier, where does she stand as a DPS? Still better equal to Novelette, or even worse than Varese or Arle. If you compare, so it's like, are we being fair or are we being unfair? If we're being fair, if we take away all of these characters' best supports, like if we take away Farina from Novelette, and we don't count Novelette Vape. If you count Novelette Vape, then Novelette's better. If we take away, actually, you know what? Even if we take away all of their best supports, she is worse than the other characters. Her best non-Escoffier team is around the same as Arlecchino Vape, so it's like, she's still pretty good, but she's not a top DPS by any stretch. Definitely don't get her if you don't have a Escoffier or you don't plan on getting her. Has her attack speed been buffed better than TC's thought, as suggested, leading into slightly more DPS? Yes, correct. She can, I was able to squeeze out, for sure, an extra 2 normal attack, and on really high ping, possibly 3. I think other content creator was able to get 3. So this definitely equals more DPS for Skirk. I have Ayaka team with Farina, Escoffier, and Yolan. Will the bigger damage boost be getting Shenhe for Ayaka or getting Skirk? The upgrade will be getting Skirk. That will be a much bigger upgrade than getting Shenhe for Ayaka. And does that change with C2 Ayaka? No, it'll still be an upgrade for Skirk, but it will be close. Like, getting Skirk will still be the bigger upgrade than getting Shenhe for Ayaka, but it'll be closer. Is she must pull? No. But if you have Escoffier, she's a smart meta pull. They're pushing Cryo a lot, and probably will for a while, and she's the second strongest DPS. It's probably it's not a bad idea to get her as long as you have Escoffier, but you can obviously get away with it. She is still a DPS at the end of the day. Vertical investment. Is there any point to vertical investment for Skirk, since her own damage is 55 to 60% of team damage, depending on the team? would not be less impactful than cons for Moika, Mualani, Arlate, or even Clorand. So one of the big differences, though, is that, sure, like some teams she's doing 55 to 60%, but I'm thinking that's probably the Yelan team. In teams where you're buffing Skirk, which are the best options, she goes to a much higher percent. So sure, Escoffier is doing good damage, but Furina's best build is Tenacity. The best options for Skirk are Mona, Shenhe, Mualani, who are prioritizing buffing Skirk. That's why I think maybe Yelan wasn't quite as good as these ones for me, because the better you invest into Skirk, the more personal damage she does for the team. So buffing her personal damage is a massive increase. For my subjective testing, when I went from her 4-star weapon to her 5-star weapon, I went from a 19-second clear to a 17-second clear, which is a pretty big difference. And then C1R1 was 15.5, which again, pretty big difference. And also the amount of rotation. So it took almost full rotation to 3/4 of rotation to just over half of a rotation. Consider that she has one of the biggest weapon upgrades in the game, and one of the best, and one of the best C1s as well. Like, whereas Moika has a great weapon, similar upgrade, not quite as big as Skirk's, but it's fairly similar. Mualani has a great weapon, and a good C1, but it's not as good as Skirk's. Arlecchino, similar thing, and Clorand just doesn't do as much team damage. She, like Moika, is doing a lot there, and Moika doesn't have a good C1. So even though she's not necessarily doing quite as high of a personal damage percentage, the amount of damage she's still doing on the team is still extremely high, and I mean, the more you invest into her, the higher the percentage of the team damage she's doing as well, both with artifacts and with weapons and constellations. Is her C1 and C2 worth getting? Like, I guess versus other characters in the roster? Yes, it is. For you personally, it depends on your account goals and your account, where you're at with your account right now. Should I pull for C1 or R1? I definitely found R1 feeling like the bigger upgrade, unless you have Haran, in which case it was, in my testing, it was just as I had found, just as I had seen before with the calcs. Here's my finding. This was C1 with Haran, so it felt just slightly a bit better, like based on the amount of rotation it took to kill the monster. Slightly better than C0R1. I did test C0R0, and this felt, if we're being honest, this felt noticeably worse than just getting her weapon. So I didn't like this nearly as much, took almost the full rotation. And then testing both C1 and R1 really did feel like quite the jump, as I posted over here. Marsh's Hunter versus Family of the Deep in C2R1 in both burst and normal attack playstyles. Burst playstyle, her Sig set is always going to be better. It just gives more of a buff. And Marishise is going to be better with normal attack playstyle. You kind of have to pick your poison. There's no one set that's the best for everything. I think I'm generally going to leave her on her signature set, unless I'm trying to do like really intense calculations to see if she can like reach Moika level clear times and I'm not going to be using her burst. Then I'll switch to Marishise. But mostly I'll use her signature set, so I have freedom to not use Furina on the team. How much cryo resonance uptime with different 4th slot characters? I think with characters that don't apply a lot of off-field hydro, we're getting 80%. So, and then Yelan or Mona if you use their skill a bit less, like Mona if you use her skill a bit less, and then Yelan a bit less. But, you know, with Dahlia, it's like around 80%. With Mualani, it's about 80%. And then with Shenhe, I think it's maybe then I think it's a bit higher. Or maybe Shenhe is 80% and they're a bit lower, but it's right around there. Wishes. Should I go for Skirk's weapon or Mav weapon? The best weapons I have for them right now are Finale and Wolf's Gravestone. Moika's weapon is a pretty massive 23% increase. Skirk's is very, very similar. Finale and Wolf's Gravestone are very, very similar for both of them. You can kind of go for either. Honestly, they'll both feel very good. I think Moika's weapon is a bit more universal, so I could say Moika's weapon. But Skirk's weapon banner has some pretty good other stuff on it. It's arguably the better weapon banner, probably, than Moika's weapon banner. So honestly, just pick whichever one you feel like you want more. I have Moika Premium Team and Furina, Escoffier, Yelan. Do I go for Mav weapon or for Skirk? Definitely go for Skirk. Like, Moika's weapon will be good, but having Furina, Escoffier, Yelan, Skirk will be a much bigger upgrade than just getting a weapon for your Moika. And who knows, maybe you'll get lucky when you're 50-50 on Skirk and you can guarantee Mav's weapon by the time it comes. But Skirk overall will be the better choice here. Should I go for Skirk weapon or Moika? Skirk confirmed. Get Moika. Same as like the opposite of the other one. getting a Moika for your account will be a much bigger upgrade than just getting a weapon for your Skirk. Is C1 Skirk worth it or save for Moika weapon? I would go for Moika weapon over Skirk C1. Kind of depends on everything else you have, but that's what I would go for. Maybe if you already have a 5-star weapon for Moika, maybe you don't need to as much. Shenhe versus Signature, which pull? Definitely go for her signature. Shenhe is not worth it. Her signature can improve in value in the future if we get another good character, whereas Shenhe can only get replaced. I have Mistsplitter. How good is it? Should I go for weapon or C1? With Mistsplitter, you're better off going for C1 slightly, but if you can use the Mistsplitter with someone else, then it might be worth going for her weapon, right? Because then you get her weapon that improves her, and then you can use Mistsplitter on whoever else. That could be worth it to go for her weapon. It's still a solid upgrade over Mistsplitter, so it's still worth it. But if you're technically min-maxing, then going for the C1 is going to be better. Do we need your signature weapon if I have C2, Farina, and all the other premium supports for peak performance? Well, until you added peak performance, I was going to say no, she's going to destroy regardless. But if you want peak performance, then you gotta go for a weapon. You want peak performance. Is it more worth it to pull for Moika or Skirk's signature weapon? We already answered that. As a new player in Genshin, started like 3 months ago, I have Shalona and Escoffier as 5 stars. Should I get Skirk or Moika? Very, very, very tough. I think Moika is the better one overall, but Skirk is first. So if you get Skirk, then you've got one meta team, and then if you can have a chance of getting Moika, then you've got another one. Like, Moika with Shalonen but not having Seatlali is definitely not as good as Skirk having Escoffier. But Moika is more universal, so it kind of depends on exactly how many pulls. If there's a chance you can get both, then getting Skirk first and then going for Moika and just going... This would be the perfect time if you've got like a ton of wishes to just like really grind. Like, get Skirk, hopefully you can get her early and grind for enough wishes to get Moika by the end of her banner. That would be the real deal. So if Moika's first, I would say make sure you get Moika and then see if you can get Skirk. But we're in this kind of tricky situation where, yeah, it's a bit tricky. Follow your heart as well. Like, if you were gonna have a lot of fun with one or the other, make sure you guarantee whoever you want. Combos. Is she mechanically challenging character skill ceiling wise? Skill ceiling wise, probably. It depends on what her best combos end up being. It could be that her best combos are relatively easy, in which case no, but I've seen some pretty dank combos out there that might make her skill ceiling pretty high. Can you sweat and do these crazy combos? I couldn't do a flip, I'm sorry. Can you do this one? I did this one. I think I got like one normal attack at the end, but I have a ton of ping. Hard to say exactly. I'm also kind of skill issue. Can you check out how many normal attacks you can squeeze if you dash cancel the N5? I got like 2. I think another creator got 3, so we'll see. For the combo questions, I'm just gonna say we're gonna wait. I really wanted to test it a bunch and deliver what was the best combo, but I tested a whole bunch and it's honestly just really frustrating. Apparently, depending on what combo we're actually able to do, her DPS could vary between 115 and 120 plus thousand damage per second, which would put her either decently above Varessa to like almost Moika level, depending on where it is. And frankly, I just don't feel equipped to talk about this. We'll just have to wait for the real sweaty tryhards to figure it out. They can tell us what the best possible one is, and then I can practice the hell out of it and let you know if it's possible for us skill issue players. Other questions. Do you think there'll be more teams and DPS units that utilize Escoffier effectively besides Skirk in the future? It doesn't sit right with me that our only meta viable teams are Skirk or Ayaka. I mean, or Risley, or Novelette, or, you know, viable meta teams. Yeah, or Risley or Novelette. I mean, that's quite a few. Will there be more DPSs? I don't know. Not every archetype needs a million DPSs just because there's a million pyro DPSs. Can she melt her burst on a power infused enemy? Some of the hits. You're not going to melt all of them. While keeping a premium team for max threat? Yeah, if you have a power infused enemy, you will be able to melt some of her hits. Did you expect her to be taller? I expected her to be shorter. Her original model was shorter and they made her taller. Is she wife? Yeah.